Thank you, brethren. Peggy?
So under President Monson, we saw some real advances towards gender equity, the lowering of the missionary age, especially for sisters, and also adding women to some of the executive committees. But the church leadership is still white, male, American. What will you do in your presidency to bring women, people of color, and international members into decision-making for the church?
That's a good question, Peggy. I hope I can be forgiven if I say I have a special place in my heart for you. I know your mother. I know your father. I know all 4 of your grandparents. And I know your family, your missionary children who've distinguished themselves with wonderful service. So Peggy is special to me. Now, what was your question? Yeah, I remember. It was, we are white, and we are American. And, but look at our quorums of the 70, and look at our leaders locally. Wherever we go, the leadership of the church is from the local communities, and those are the real leaders. The 12 and the 70 are not a representative assembly of any kind. That means we don't have representatives. How would you govern a church with a representative from all of the 188 countries? So somebody's going to be left out, but it doesn't matter because the Lord's in charge, and we'll live to see the day when there will be other flavors in the mix. But we respond because we've been called by the Lord. Not one of us asked to be here. I'll have to tell you about when I was called to the 12th, nearly 34 years ago. I was on a board of directors of a commercial concern, and one of them was a rather worldly person, not of our faith. And when I was called to the 12, he says, I don't understand your church. They live on the tithing of the people, and then they take one of their best tithe payers out of production. So we don't think the way man thinks. God's ways are not man's ways.
I think it's also valuable to remember something that I have found useful to cite when I talk to youth. I remind them that it's dangerous to label themselves as particular nationality, geographic origin, ethnic circumstance, or whatever it may be. Because the most important thing about us is that we are all children of God. If we keep that in mind, we are better suited to relate to one another and to avoid a kind of quota system, as if God applied his blessings and extended his goodness and his love on the basis of quotas that I think he does not recognize, so we shouldn't.
But what about women?
I love them. I have a special place in my heart about the women. I'm the father of 9 beautiful daughters. And I often wondered, how am I so lucky as to get girls? Where are all the missionary boys? Well, we finally did get one, and the poor boy didn't even know who his real mother was for the first couple of years. But now, with a little more seasoning and maturing and time passing by, I understand, because they had a superb mother, those girls. And now those girls are mothers of their own flock, teaching the things that my wife taught them. And now, all my girls are now grandmothers. They have strong children, strong in faith, strong in capacity, and they emulate the work of their wonderful mother and their grandmother. We have women on our councils. We have women administering ordinances in the temple. We have women presidents of the auxiliaries and their counselors. We depend on their voices, and I think I said something about that in a conference talk a little while ago. A plea to my sisters to take their place. We need their voices, we need their input, and we love their participation with us.
Could I just add one thing, President? We need their influence.
Oh, yeah.
I keep getting praised for how wonderful my children are.
Yeah.
And I know who did that. And it depends on what you, I think, matters most. But there is no question in my mind, if you speak of the notion of the place of women, they are the source of most of the strength we see. I have 4 sons. They've all been bishops, and I'll tell you why. It was their mother. And I think that the idea of position or the idea of recognition, I can see how that would be a concern to people, that they don't see the women being given that recognition. But in terms of influence, the Lord has already given them. I think no greater influence exists in the kingdom than the women of the church. And I say that in the absence of my wife, who I wish was here, so she could hear me say that I think most of the good things that I've done and that my family are doing are because of her.
In the Doctrine and Covenants, there's that verse that says, before the foundation of the world, women were created to bear and care for the sons and daughters of God. And in doing so, they glorify God. Next question.
Thank you.
Some of the faculty that I talked to called it Clark Gilbert's black box. It says, you know, the form says you have to support church doctrine. You can't oppose church doctrine. Some of these things are not doctrine, and some of these things are open to interpretation, and it's frankly not clear what people did wrong.
We're tasked with trying to strike that same sensitive, demanding balance in our lives. Musket fire, yes, we will always need defenders of the faith. But friendly fire is a tragedy. And from time to time, the church, its leaders, and some of our colleagues within the university community have taken such fire on this campus. And sometimes it isn't friendly. Wounding students and the parents of students, so many who are confused about what so much recent flag waving and parade holding on this issue means. My beloved friends, this kind of confusion and conflict ought not to be, not here.
If people really take the time to read and study about Joseph Smith, I don't believe there's any way they could not accept the truth of it. If they're open-minded, if their heart's in the right place, if they're looking for truth, they'll find it in the right places, and this is the right place for Joseph Smith history. The project itself will strengthen testimonies all over the world. I know my testimony has been strengthened to know that Joseph Smith is exactly who he said he was, that he testified of Christ, which is the real message that we want to get from the Joseph Smith papers, that Christ is at the head of this church, that Joseph is the one who brought his gospel back to the earth. And in a way, I'm a little bit sad to see the project end, because I know I have been blessed along the way for having been involved with the Joseph Smith papers.
And the Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Foundation is swinging for the fences with pledging $22 million to the Salt Lake City's Ballpark Next Fund. The foundation also continuing their efforts to help the ballpark neighborhood in Salt Lake City, with talks of Utah getting an MLB team as they start to heat up.
Hi, it's Kristen here with LDS Charities, and today I'm with Matt Minkovich, who is the Executive Director of the Road Home.
Very much. Utah Jazz owner Gail Miller stepping up her efforts to help Salt Lake City's homeless population.
Yeah, she serves on the board of the Shelter the Homeless, and ABC4's Rick Aaron tells us she's putting her money as well as her time into the 3 new homeless resource centers.
The wealthiest person in the state of Utah is doing a lot for those who have the least. This new homeless resource center is being named for Gail Miller, and her family's foundation has pledged to match donations up to $10 million.
Travis Wayne gets home. The Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith claim to be Jewish. And despite this, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claim that Joseph Smith is their founder, and that the Book of Mormon is their keystone scripture of doctrine and the gospel. And yet they refer to both Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon as Christian and not Jewish. So there's a big controversy. Which one is it? You can't just make a claim based on your opinion. You have to run the tests. By their fruits you shall know them. Is it Christian or is it Jewish? When Mormons run the test to know if the Book of Mormon is true, they run the Christian test, not the Jewish. You're supposed to run the Jewish. Book of Mormon says it's Jewish. 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2. Jewish, not Christian. Christianity was long since not invented, but by saying that, you're throwing in the first creed of Christianity, which turned the Jewish scriptures into literal histories. Book of Mormon is not literal history if it's Jewish. AI is dominating our society, our culture. Everything is being overrun by AI. And I ran the test before to see if AI is intelligent, and it failed. But we're told that AI learns from itself. Just give it time. Really? So it's been a year. I don't know how long ago it was when I ran the test for you live. And we'll do it again. We'll see if AI has learned from its past errors. Is the Book of Mormon true? Oh my hell. Jewish. 1 Nephi 1, 2. Generating. The Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi 1, 2, indicates that the book was originally written in a language that was influenced by Hebrew and Egyptian. Not the answer I was looking for. Not the answer. So, is the Book of Mormon Jewish religion? Yes! It learned! Do you understand that? But it doesn't say, it just says yes. And repeats the same information as before. Okay. So, as Jewish, it's about the Jewish Christs. Is Joseph Smith's religion Jewish? No. Oops. They're claiming it's universalism, that anyone can be adopted as Abraham's posterity. Oh my God, you just threw in Christianity. Now let's get more specific. 2 Nephi 3, 5. Still's claiming no. Joseph Smith's religion was not Jewish. Is Joseph Smith the Jewish Messiah ben Joseph? Oh! Nothing. Stumped AI. I am smarter than AI. I am smarter than AI. So let's remove the Jewish and just do Messiah ben Joseph. No. But he was a prophet. That's the Jewish Christ. Oh my God. So yeah. It's not intelligent, it's not learning. Game, set, match. We ran the test, AI still fails. You understand this? If it can't tell the truth, it's not intelligent. It is a faulty product that needs to be recalled. It's not learning, it's telling lies. And remember, AI was first used in our voting machines in 2024's election for president. Right, YouTube? So, the Young Turks last night had reported that now they're wanting to replace teachers across America with AI. I just ran the test. It failed. And now they're going to replace teachers who teach a required curriculum from textbooks that they can't vary from. And now they're going to be replaced with an AI system rather than textbooks approved by the public school system corporate board. AI. Really? In Islam, unless it is beneficial to the mission of Islam, women don't get educated. They are not allowed to be educated. It is a crime punishable by death if women are caught getting educated. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are just like Islam. They did the pamphlet. Yeah. Did you not know that, women? Is that not why you hide rather than talk about that? Upon my freedom back in 2014, I went to a ward activity and saw a young woman sitting by herself and decided to go over and talk with her. And she apparently was the roommate of Rita, who I had been aware of previously. And Rita's father was the mission president of my son on his mission while I was indefinitely incarcerated to be murdered by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with the receipt that I would find later by all 15 of the corporate board. And Rita's dad wrote me back when I inquired as to why he didn't respond. I think it was, I had sent him back a letter, and because my son went home from his mission early, the missionaries who take the mail had it sent to the mission president, and the mission president sent me a letter informing me that that was the case, and that he was told not to inform me about it because of his mother's request. And so that's how I learned about Rita and that connection. After all those years, not knowing what happened to my son, no longer hearing from my son, upon my freedom, I was put in the ward with the woman whose father was my son's mission president, who then told me what happened. But similar to the church and Islam not wanting us to have education, likewise the church is involved with that. and nevertheless, the church wants women to immediately get married, not to go on a mission, not to get an education, other than to find a returned missionary and get married right away. Thus the MRS degrees at BYU, Rick's, BYU Hawaii, Ensign College, blah, blah, blah. And thus women are therefore not needing to get a career. Well, if you're not going to get an education, what's the point of getting a career? And so, yeah, there's been a big controversy, especially in this valley, about Mormon women in the workplace. There are men who have families to raise, and they're being denied jobs because women are in those jobs. There's big controversy in Mormondom because of this. And so when I was talking to Rita's roommate at that picnic, church activity, fire department. Somehow the topic got on to women in the priesthood, and I already knew about 17th of March, 1842. I didn't know it from the Joseph Smith papers yet, but I already knew it, that women were allowed priesthood and priesthood office. But when talking to her about this, she immediately crouched down and was going, shh, shh. She didn't want to talk about it. She was in the underground woman's movement with Kate Kelly. But Kate Kelly, I think, had been excommunicated by then, hasn't she? Or was it she soon to be excommunicated? I guess I should have checked when I was on the internet. Oh, God. Kate Kelly and missionary. Interesting. She wears my grandmother's style of glasses, and yet when she dolls herself up, she's quite attractive. photographed by Seth McCausland, Arizona. Oh, no wonder. But yeah, she got her bachelor's at BYU. She was following the covenant path, didn't get married. She was rejected, and thus became a feminist. The question is it the correct definition of feminist? Because I'm for women, so does that make me a feminist? What was I looking up for her? She is an advocate for Equal Rights Amendment. Yeah, everybody should. 14th Amendment, Section 1. It's already given, but the powers that be don't want to consider women human. And abortion access, again, 14th Amendment, Section 1, but oops, overthrown. Oh, that's why she wore grandma's glasses. She came out as queer in 2019. That's right, excommunicated. Excommunicated from the church in 2014. Ta-da! And so, queer is queer because it is loosely defined. Because the original definition of queer was just somebody who's not normal, not following the normal pattern. And it's vague, it doesn't refer to sexuality. And nonetheless, now it is, thanks to the 1990s, in which I didn't see how old she was. Psychologists got put into the school system to pretty much destroy the school system. Born 1980, and so yeah, she would have been 10 years old in the 90s when psychologists took over. And so she was deeply ingrained with psychology influence in our public school systems, as apparently she was from Arizona. I probably should keep a record of her since she has an impact in church history. For the history of the people, history of the Mormons. And so, yeah, the roommate of Rita's was completely freaking out and panicking because she didn't want others to listen in and find out that she was a part of this apostate, anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, feminist, Nazi communism. I shouldn't use Nazi. The church embraces Nazism. Did you guys see the picture from last week, I think it was, in which I put the timeline of the latter days according to the Joseph Smith Foundation? I have a picture, made a timeline, all pretty, and then under the coup of the government and the Nephite government, below they put the modern day equivalent: socialism and communism. And so I put no fascism? Question? The church is fully embracing fascism. I don't think people understand this, especially the one guy who used to follow me, but only for the purpose of getting me to follow him. And he was insistent that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was the deep state Dems in bed with the Clintons. So naive. So naive. See, the church, I don't think, ever met with Obama. They met with Republicans. I think they even met with Clinton. LDS Church meets with Obama. President Obama notes Mormon effort with religious. Met with church leaders back in 2015. Okay, so this is a church newsroom. But which church leaders? Oh, I remember him vaguely. Yeah, Perry, who bit the big one soon thereafter. Interesting. Interesting. April. Interesting. Interesting. Tom Perry. He meets with Obama and is then murdered. The next month. We've got to cover this. Oh my God, I don't want to forget this. Like I forgot the licenses yesterday. Oh my God, that is just hilarious. That'll teach you. So there's lots of fun stuff to learn without AI interfering. Oh my God. So those of you who've been following me know exactly what I'm referring to. Notice it's not the first presidency that met with Obama, but the first presidency will meet with the Republicans. And I was there, and I just, oh my God. LDS Church meets with Clinton. Okay, so we got Deseret News, and we got Old Church News from 1992. Clinton meets with LDS Church leaders. So, yeah, it's the Deseret News, Church News. September 15th. Oh, yeah, Gordon B. Hinckley met with Clinton. Threatened him, condemned him for his blowjob. Blowjob while president. Well, if Trump can get away with his crimes, can't Clinton? Nope. Not at all. Not at all. And so, yeah, we need to put in Oakes's comment about women not being allowed. Oakes. Women. Oh my God, just priceless. Precious and few. And so I think it was also last week in the church news, or the week before, when the church news was talking about the guy named Clark Gilbert. And I told you, oh, they're grooming him to be a replacement apostle in a coming day. And since Nelson is on his deathbed, Oakes is going to be taking over. And so I'm starting to see Oakes's influence on changes that are now taking place. And you guys don't seem to catch on to this, because when Monson was dying on his deathbed, there were changes going on that Nelson was in charge of. He was not the president yet. He was jumping the gun, but setting things up for his coming administration while Monson was on his deathbed. Now Nelson is on his deathbed, and Oakes is next, and now I can see some of the changes that are taking place for Oakes's preparation to become the president of the church. This is why I do church news videos. This is why I warn you about the church. This is why I expose them with the words they say. As Oakes is the one who got leaked confessing that the church is in charge of putting in presidents for America. That's what Sister Jessica revealed, and she doesn't know it, because she's taking it literally that Jesus is coming. And so likewise, Mormons, Mindy, who saw Sister Jessica's mission post, and the Mormon YouTube guy who she notified about it, who did a video on it and then brought it to my attention. So then I found out there was a mission president, and he didn't reference it correctly, but nonetheless. The Mormons, from his video, do not understand what Oakes said, that the mission president quoted. Mormons think it's real, that Jesus is coming, that we just have to be faithful. It's almost Christmas. Nope, sorry. Oakes changed it January 2nd because of their failed attacks on New Year's to Easter now, to threaten us that we'll be resurrected if we're faithful. Jesus is coming, and you will be resurrected. The coming of Jesus is mass murder and coup of governments. And Mormons get upset with me over this? This is what we are taught. With the coming of Jesus Christ comes the burning, because of the brightness of his glory. And yet the apostles, prophets, would talk about this utter destruction of the coming of Jesus as a nuclear holocaust. And you think I'm wrong? And that Jesus is going to be given government authority? Well, how? You know, Canada's Prime Minister just quit. Is he going to inform the new guy that he's got to hand over the government to Jesus? Trump just won because of AI. Is he going to hand over the government to Jesus? You're not thinking. The church is using Jesus as code for their coup and insurrection, their terrorism. Tithing is to pay terrorists to commit the overthrow of governments. That's why Oaks came out on the 2nd after the utter failure of minimal casualties, thank God, of the New Orleans ISIS member, technically Islamic State, thus ICE, or is. Nobody is getting the big picture here, and it's sickening. And so yes, I was pissed last night learning of the peaceful transfer of authority. See, Democrats did it right. No, you didn't. Article 6 and the 14th Amendment, Section 3. You failed America. You did not keep your constitutional oath against foreign and domestic enemies. You betrayed us. And now the Constitution is destroyed under Biden as MAGA reigns supreme as fascist. And so yes, part 2 of the transition phase for the 4 requirements of the latter days has now happened. God. So, the church purposely withholds knowledge and information from us. They've been lying about church history the whole time. That's what I've been talking about yesterday about Gail Miller being the church's weapon against Sandra Tanner. The Tanners, Gerald and Sandra Tanner, from the 80s, were excommunicated. Probably should do a check on this to make sure, because they're actually older than that. Gerald and Sandra Tanner, because they started the Utah Lighthouse Ministry. I should already have this, but let's make sure that we got them as well since we're doing it. My files are just a dumping ground of documents that are unorganized. Let's see. So Gerald died in 2006. She was born in 1941. So, yeah, she's older than both my parents by just a year or 2 years. Or actually, no, it's 3 years from my mom and 5 years from my dad. Let's see. They are described here as American writers and researchers who publish archival and evidential materials about the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When were they excommunicated? As of 2025, she continues to operate the ministry, but got kicked out of her home. You didn't mention that. That's the Gail Miller syndrome. Okay, Gerald, born in Provo, 5th generation Mormon. He studied at the University of Utah. Well, that's where he went wrong. That's no longer Jesus' university. And received a degree, Trade Technical Institute. Grandfather John Tanner gave large donations to church founder Joseph Smith. And no, he's in the Book of the Law Ledger of Brigham Young. He's a Danite. Maybe. Let's wait a minute. I'm seeing other indicators that no, that's not the case. He is the financial backer of the Kirtland Temple, so that tells me he's actually okay. But what happened to him? Yeah. This article has multiple issues. Please help improve it. Yeah, Mormons don't want anything to do with him because Gerald is an apostate. Let's see. Rhode Island, moved to New York, 21 children, 3 successive wives. So somewhere along the line, he turncoated to Brigham, but they're not giving us the information. He was a Baptist, just like Rigdon. I'm assuming. They don't say here, but from Rhode Island, it would have been a different variation. Until he joined, pay attention, here's where the error is. He joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 1832. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints did not exist in 1832. What are they talking about? So thus, multiple issues. Please help improve it. Baptized by Jared Carter. So then we'd have to check on Jared Carter, because by having him naming the church the wrong name in 1832, we then need to find out if Jared Carter is also part of the Danites and involvement with the movement. In June 1831, Carter was made a priest in the church. Urged him, so Doctrine and Covenants 52 verse 38 is him. Fourth General Conference, where he discovered that his brother Simeon had been baptized in the church around the same time that he himself had joined the faith. That September, Carter was made an elder. He recorded witnessing healing miracles throughout his years in the church. After Newell K. Knight, not Newell Knight, challenged Carter on the validity of these healing miracles. I just did too. Carter left. Oh. He's making up miracles to claim the church is true. And Newell K. Knight called him on it, and he cowered in shame. Went to go live with his brother Simeon in Lorain County, Ohio. Right, Brigham Babble Young? See, church history is awesome if you understand what to look for. But the Tanners didn't know, and nevertheless knew enough to obtain original documents that showed that the church was lying to everybody. And so that's what they did. And so that's the original Tanner guy. And let's see, Tanner sold property around Lake George, New York, included a brothel, moved to Kirtland, Ohio. Joseph Smith tried to repay him, he refused. Cool, good for you. You should give without expecting anything in return. But you notice that Joseph Smith wanted to repay him. Brigham Young, no. Thank you for your generous gift of required tithing. Let's see, then moved to Iowa. Wait a minute. He moved to Missouri, attacked by the result of a mob, and government persecution led to the same. They don't talk about his involvement in 1838, other than he had to flee. The Danites approached every Mormon, join us or die. He fled. And yet moved to Nauvoo, where the Danites resettled. Interesting. But he fled to Iowa first, and then eventually came back to Nauvoo. And that's how it happened. It doesn't say when he came back to Nauvoo. Tanner eventually went west with the pioneers. He led the large family of his son-in-law, Amasa Lyman, the Lyman taint. No wonder. And so, Lyman, follower of Brigham Young. In July 1844, Lyman learned that Smith and his brother Hiram had been murdered by orders of Brigham Young and the payment of the Judas price to the mob at the Wasatch Lodge, who painted their faces black, then failed, and so Willard Richards had to take over, shoot Joseph Smith in the back, dump his body out the window to the well, and then go back over to Hiram and shoot him in the eye while he was he was lying on his back on the ground. And so, Lyman supported Brigham Young's position to be the leader as the president of the Quorum of the 12. Okay. So, I didn't find out which group I went with. Let's see. Young restored Lyman as a member. Wait a minute. He got excommunicated and then came back to be a supporter of Brigham Young. Oh my God. Created by the excommunication of Orson Pratt. 5 months later, January 1843, Pratt was rebaptized and restored. Lyman was excluded from the quorum. 1843, Lyman served his first presidency. Due to the turbulence of the years, especially after Smith's death, Lyman was never sustained at the conference of the church to the position. Is that going to be you, Oaks? Is that going to be you? Interesting. Becomes the president of the church, but never gets sustained at April conference. That would be so cool. And so I don't see him getting excommunicated. So why? Young restored Lyman as a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, 1844. Okay. Fascinating. See, all of these things need to be put together in their context. You can't separate them out and say that they're all true as written. Interesting. And so, it was in March 1851, 437 Latter-day Saints under leadership of Lyman and Rich left Great Mall, Salt Lake. Whoops, too far. Lyman and his 7 wives traveled with the Mormon pioneers who followed Young to the Salt Lake Valley. So they're claiming that he was part of the first vanguard company. So thus Tanner would have been part of the vanguard company, because they say Tanner went with Amasa Lyman. Okay, so yeah, where he died in 1850. Interesting. Okay. And gave large donations to the church founder, Brigham Young. And so, yeah, Tanner had a wife of Brigham Young, I guess. Oh, not Sandra. Sandra was a 5th generation Mormon. She is the great-great-granddaughter of Brigham Young, the LDS Church's second president. No, it's not the Church's second president. He's the first. Both families had long-standing ties to the Mormon community. That was unnecessary. Editor. They met in the spring of 1959 in Salt Lake City at a religious meeting of Pauline Hancock's Church of Christ Lukites. Soon after they were introduced, Gerald and Sandra began jointly researching the subject of Mormonism. Yeah, apostate literature. The Lukites. Those Lukites. So technically, we should make sure that we get the Lukites. Church of Christ, Hancock, Basement Church, the Church of Christ Lukites, and the Church of Christ Bible and Book of Mormon Teaching was a sect of the Latter-day Saint movement founded in Independence, Missouri, 1946 by Pauline Hancock, a woman. This church, which became defunct in 1984, there's the distinction of being the first Latter-day Saint sect to be founded by a woman, blah, 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 blah. Among its members were Gerald and Sandra Tanner, and thus the Utah Lighthouse Ministry. Pauline was a member of the reorganized church now called the Community of Christ. See, there's the connection. Soon after they were introduced, Gerald and Sandra Tanner began jointly researching the subject of Mormonism. Each had been raised Latter-day Saints, so they're not married yet. They started dating by studying the church history. Isn't that sweet? So cute. I'm so lonely. Each had been raised as Latter-day Saint. Yeah. During teenage years. Each had been questioning the church in their teenage years. Every teenager questions the church in their teen years. It's because of seminary. Wait a minute. The text says this. No. Feel good about what we tell you to believe. But the text said, no. I'm going to have to report you to your bishop. And he's going to ask you sexual questions. Are you menstruating right now? What does that have to do with anything? Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Classic. Awesome. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. The following year, both resigned from the church because they were married by a Protestant minister in Mission Hills, California, June 14th. 1959. In 1964, so it doesn't say how they got together and how they moved to Mission Hills, California. They began an outreach to Mormons at their house in Salt Lake City. Yeah, it's gone now. They demolished it for the new, revitalized ballpark. Gail Miller, which grew into the Utah Lighthouse Ministry. Gerald had Alzheimer's. Interesting. Many Mormon families have Alzheimer's. My Fulmer family, for example, had Alzheimer's. My grandmother. Because it was my grandmother, I will never get Alzheimer's. So says my DNA. Interesting. And so yes, this ballpark is gone because of Gail Miller, or the home at ballpark. As originally, the church tried to get the city to escalate the problems there in the neighborhood, to increase the crime and the violence and the theft from gang activity. And when that didn't work, then Gail Miller stepped in. She funded the church laundering money for the Joseph Smith Papers Project. Original church history documents, just like the Gerald and Sandra Tanner were doing. Collecting original church documents and publishing, showing how the church is lying to us about church history. And so, failing to assassinate Sandra Tanner, Gail Miller steps in. We should find out the age of Gail Miller, because it should be around the same time. They probably knew each other. Businesswoman. Nazi. God, why do you do it? I don't want that. Karen Gail Miller, nee Saxton, born 1943. Yep. Same age, just 2 years younger. And her husband, Larry H. Miller, homophobia. Brokeback Mountain. You do know that scandal? Everybody should. He refused to show Brokeback Mountain in his theaters. I don't think I've ever seen the movie. I don't think I have. Never had an interest. It didn't seem to have any appeal to my interests. But because there's no female actor in it. But yeah, now I see the issue. They're all living here, growing up as teenagers in Utah. And so yes, Gerald and Sandra Tanner become very popular when they moved back to Utah across from the ballpark. And so yep, this was a revenge hit by Gail Miller, as she was also used to do a revenge hit on me too. Anybody remember that? I've been showing you pictures about the assassination attempt by Gail Miller in her concentration camps of hell of human trafficking. And so, yeah, Gerald and Sandra Tanner are all about collecting original church documents, publishing about how the church is lying to us about church history. And so Gail Miller then launders money to the church beyond the tithing laundering, as she's a prostitute for Jesus, in case you guys all forget. And the church then does the online Joseph Smith Papers, and yet never claims any changes need to be made. That's the big thing you need to understand. The Joseph Smith Papers destroys this church. And yet, the church is confident they've got you indoctrinated and brainwashed, and that you'll never check the Joseph Smith Papers for your research ever again. This is the whole con that they're pulling on you. They think you're that stupid. They think you will never do your research and study. This is why I'm warning you with oaks. And so, then after putting out the Joseph Smith Papers and fooling everybody, except me, which Gail Miller was then activated, and yes, the church laundered money to her to launder back to them for this whole operation against me. But Gail Miller, then still holding a grudge, wanting revenge on Sandra, takes over the ballpark revitalization, and with it goes everybody in the neighborhood across the street, including Sandra Jenner. And she now has moved. She was already telling me about that in my interview with her from the results of Gail Miller attacking me. I'll do the live video for you. And said that she's going to be moving. She's not sure if she's going to continue the ministry, and apparently she is in some form or fashion, but not from the house, because she moved to the place that she was considering moving to when she talked with me in person, live. So yes, I am inspired with what I do when I do it. And when I get inspired, I do it immediately. And when it comes to the latter days, it's always premature. It pisses me off. I'm ready. I'm doing it. Why can't you keep up? And so back to Clark Gilbert. Born June 18th, 1970. And so he's a few years younger than I am. And was in General Authority 70 in April 2021. Okay? Know your context. Know the bigger picture of what's going on. And he was the Church Commissioner of Education since August of that year. So they put him in as a General Authority 70. And because of his conforming and complying, they thought, hey, he's perfect for the Church Commissioner of Education, the CCCE. Not the CCCP. Which technically is an R. But that's Russian. And so he was president of BYU Pathway Worldwide, and I did those church videos. And serving as the 16th president of BYU Idaho. No. Let me correct you on this. I did not go to BYU, Idaho. There was a guy on LinkedIn last week who wanted to be my friend because we share the same school, BYU, Idaho. Brigham Young University, Idaho presidents. BYU, Idaho, list of Brigham Young University, Idaho presidents. There we go. And so they have the school name off to the right. And this is where you need to understand. This is why the church is wording it this way on the internet and the sites and in their publications. Because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was not the name of Joseph Smith's church, and yet Brigham Young is called the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No, he's the first with that name. And this is where the church is deceiving everybody. And so Henry B. Eyring for Ricks College. Yeah. Under George S. Romney, it became Ricks College in 1923. The same year, Heber J. Grant filed articles of incorporation for the corporation, not the religion that was dissolved in 1887, the corporation. And so then he has George S. Romney change it to Ricks College at the same time. See the bigger context of what's going on? Heber J. Grant changed the name of Ricks Normal College after Ricks Academy, and then Bannock Stake Academy, which was its original name under Jacob Sporey. And so yes, you need to know this information because they will lie to you. None of this is BYU, Idaho. BYU, Idaho did not begin until 2001 under Gordon B. Hinckley, with David A. Bednar making the change from Ricks College to Brigham Young University, Idaho. 2001. I had long since graduated with an associate's in LDS religion. That's the best I can figure for what it was. And so Ricks ceased to exist in 2001. And they don't tell you the specific date. They just say in 2001. And so then Gilbert was 2015 to 2017. And so technically he's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4. Number 4. Fourth president of Brigham Young University, Idaho. It's just like Nelson. He is not number 17. He's number 11. Do you not understand this? Heber J. Grant filed articles of incorporation for the corporation, not the church, the corporation. Nelson is the CEO, number 11 of the corporation, not number 17 of the church. There is no church. You've all been lied to. These kinds of things they want you to accept and believe. And so they do it with all different kinds of stuff here. Not just with the name of the church, but the name of BYU, Idaho. Ricks College is gone. I was not a part of BYU, Idaho. The church can never tell me otherwise. LinkedIn does. Because I tried to put in Ricks and it wouldn't allow it. It didn't know its existence. and so I was forced to put BYU, Idaho. And now I've got some young kid wanting to be my friend, who I know wants to sell me something. Doesn't want to be my friend. That's why I'm pissed off. Anyway, let's see. Been a part of the Deseret News and Deseret Digital Media, and so he's involved in propaganda for the church, thus Church Commissioner of Education. He's conforming and complying to the hierarchy of Mormon illiteracy that I've been going over with you previous couple months ago, last year, in which Mormons at the bottom are told we're a religion, we're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, everything's the same as Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon, a Christian. If you believe this, if you're that gullible and you're illiterate, then the church tests you further by raising you up. Only men, not women. Regardless of whether women mentally rises up or non-mentally, you still stay at the authority level at the bottom as a regular member. You never get bumped up, other than you Relief Society presidents and that type of stuff, but that doesn't, the church doesn't count that. Because you're supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. No education, no mission, no career. So only for men. And so he has demonstrated that, yes, in the beginning, he believed the lie that we're Christian, Jesus is real, and so he went on a mission telling others we're Christian, Jesus is real, Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ, not Jewish. And so he comes home, he gets involved with all this stuff. As, let's see, he was an professor of entrepreneurial management at HBS, and was an advisor to the American Press Institute newspaper Next Project, studied ways for newspapers to transition to digital. I worked closely with Clayton M. Christensen while at HBS, and there's his connection into the church. Yep, there's his connection. And so by showing his faithful loyalty at a higher level with his career, that got him in to church administration in the quorum of the 70, General Authority 70. See how this works? And so thus was utilized for this project of turning the church into the digital age and controlling information to members. See, Peggy Fletcher Stack, who did the article last night that I was made aware of, and thus talking about Clark Gilbert, does not make this connection. She's not as great as she is claimed to be. She just criticizes the church as an anti-Mormon apostate, Korahor, as blah, blah, blah. She doesn't do her research thoroughly. She talked about how BYU is becoming Nazi, scaring all of the professors at BYU, as many who apply are being denied, and they don't understand why. Perfectly qualified, they're faithful, they thought, and they're being denied teaching at BYU. Since Gilbert took over as the Church Commissioner of Education. And she doesn't reference Holland and his musket fire She doesn't make that connection either. Becky. So you do know the Salt Lake Tribune is now owned and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? They bought it out. There's a big scandal about monopolies on that, and they said, oh no, we won't do it. We won't do it. Yeah, they did. And so Peggy got silenced further because of it. They allow her stuff as long as she doesn't push the boundaries. She doesn't know how. Although it was hilarious when Nelson's press conference, they were allowed to ask one question. It was already asked so that they could have their response already prepared on the screen. And Peggy gets her turn. Nelson gives her a death threat reminder. I know your family. Be careful. And then she asks a second question that is not on the script. And so, because they're reading from the script, they ignore the second question. And she goes, what about the second question? Hilarious. I'll see if I can find that press conference. Nelson. We'll see. And so, yes, you need to know what's going on. BYU has had numerous scandals about raping of women who then are kicked out of BYU and excommunicated for causing the rape. Right, Oaks? Women are porn. Women are to blame for their getting raped. Because they're not getting married to be prostitutes for Jesus. And, God. And so, yes, there's the security issue there at BYU, the security force, not being a part of the police force, and other scandals with LGBTQ. And notice how the young men's guy is now out of the picture again. Who had his scandal, was then sent to Africa on his repentance mission, and then came back in full glory to give the prayer in general conference. And then the next conference, he's then the speaker. What is his name? I'm not remembering his name. I'm remembering all about the scandal because he taught at BYU, and so students were complaining about his racism and his pedophilia discussions with children. Let's talk about sex, kids. What? And so, yeah, a group of blacks at BYU wanted to have a discussion with him. Dear God, guys, stop with the discussion stuff. That's psychological manipulation, and the church doesn't want discussions. You guys never learn. You cannot use psychology against the church, who are using psychology against you in the first place. God, you're just being played by psychologists on that. If the church is doing something wrong, you call it out. You don't have a discussion. You need to know the church is wrong. They know what they're doing. They know they're wrong. They're doing it anyway. You are getting played as a sucker and a loser if you don't understand that. If you think that you can make change with discussion. Let's have a talk. No, it's not gonna work. And so, yeah, he fled, didn't have a discussion with them, and then the holidays ensued. He got away with it. And and then would go on his mission to Africa. See? I'm not racist. I'm telling Africans to give up their religion and join Jesus so that they're no longer under the curse of fence sitters and the premortal council in heaven, and that they can turn white and delightsome. Not racist whatsoever. Oh my God. Oh my God. So yes, this is the big scandal of what's going on. Oh my hell. Oh, he's got scandals where he, oh my God. In May 2010, he was appointed president of the Deseret News. He did not replace Jim Wall, the publisher, or Joseph A. Cannon, the editor, but filled a new role in the organization, so that in August, he laid off 43% of its workforce. Was that the farms guy who turned to the Daniel Peterson? Was that with Daniel Peterson, or was that how Daniel Peterson got hired? Would have been how he got hired, because it was Hinckley that did away, or was it, let's see, it was 2008 when I got disappeared, and I think the Maxwell Institute at BYU. There's some background stuff that I'm aware of that you may not be aware of, guys. That's why I'm very curious. Farms was run and operated by Daniel Peterson. James John Welsh, or whatever his name is, on his mission, thought he recognized Hebrew chiasmus. You recognize the late war. You recognize the late war. Let's see. When was it? 2006. Yep. Yep. So he did take over in the job after the laying off of 43%. 2006, Hinckley, pissed with messing with the Jesus card boy, his special little project for the revision of the footnotes. 2 years later, Farms is punished for trying to have me kicked out of that committee group. Daniel Peterson loses Farms, and it becomes the Maxwell Institute of Religion for the study of Mormonism. No more not trying to prove evidence that the church is true. 4 years later, the Deseret News is gutted by Gilbert. And this is just fascinating. I probably should have downloaded that Wikipedia thing, because that has to do with this whole big picture that's going on here that I was a part of. And I still don't have a Wikipedia page. They don't want you to know about me. Fascinating. And there's some problems I see here at the top of this article too. This article relies excessively on references to primary sources. Please improve this article by adding secondary or tertiary sources. What? No. That's what you want to do, is have primary sources. You don't want secondary. Oh my God. Wikipedia, shame on you. So let's see what they're talking about here. Gospel topics, essays, and other resources. LDS Church identifies Maxwell Institute as one of the several third-party church affiliates offered gospel study resources. Yeah, that one is not a primary source. No, you're not. Oh my God. The University of Lethbridge taught me how to do this correctly. Even my education in Southern California high school prepared me for the University of Lethbridge so that I wasn't completely, what? Primary sources? What's that? Nevertheless, so I just, oh my God. Church history documents, primary sources. We kind of need to refer to those for the truth. That's the whole thing, that Wikipedia, oh my God. It's bad enough that the church won't do it. But for Wikipedia to think that that was a primary source, oh my hell. I ran the test and the first one I came to was a failure. This relies primarily on primary source document. And that's not a primary source document. That was a non sequitur. Wow. And so, yeah, 2010, he's booted out of the Maxwell Institute. They couldn't tolerate him. And so he got hired with the Deseret News as an editor because of this purging that was too extreme. After purging the workforce, they realized they needed to hire more people. Oops. Know him by his fruits. And so, yeah, that is just intense. So, wow. Personal life. Let's find out if his wife is sex trafficked, not just prostituted. Christine are the parents of 8 children. They don't want to talk about who she is. They don't want to give her birth date. They don't have who her parents are, who her maiden name is. They don't want to tell. And so, served his mission to Kobe, Japan, 1989, 1991. So we were in the MTC together, most likely, for that brief 2-week period of time, although he would have been there for the month, right? It was a month for foreign speakers. Not 2 months, just 1 month. And got a bachelor's degree at BYU in Provo, Utah. Unnecessary. You have BYU underlined. People can go to BYU's link and find out, oh, it's in Provo, Utah. Okay. A master's degree in East Asian Studies from the University of Stanford. He was going for the easy A's, the easy degree masters. Oh my hell. And a doctorate of business. Well, I did the same thing. When I came back from my mission, I went to Rick's. Got an associate's in Mormon studies. Easy A. See? It would have been a beam and a mote if I ignored my mote, yeah. No, beam. He, mote, beam, yeah. Gotta get them correct. Because beam and mote is weird because it's actually mote, beam. Complaining about a mote in another person when you have the beam in yourself. But I acknowledge my beam. That's why I can mock him. Gilbert has served in the church as a bishop, member of state presidency. See, his career corresponded with his church callings. Equal. And thus was all primed, ready to go because of his Christian sin connection. See how it works in the church? This is how you get into authority. Dear God. So let's check this other one of yours to see if we can find out who your wife is that you are hiding from us. It would be this one from the church. Church is all about family. Genealogy. We are doing it. Our genealogy. Personal life. Was born in Oakland. Was his dad going to Berkeley with my dad? Oh, crap. Another connection between us. Oh, crap. Huh. Calder, 1994. That's her name. Christine Calder. And so he was 24 years old when he got married. Shame on you. Menace to society. 8 children with her. She's an 8-cow wife. And so it's not likely we would have to. He was at BYU in '94, received his bachelor's degree in 1994, and thus, after getting his bachelor's, he then married Christine Calder. See the connection here? They don't make it, I see it. Received a bachelor's degree in international relations from Brigham Young University in 1994. And so then he goes to Stanford in 1995. He is married to Christine Calder in 1994 and then takes her to Stanford with him. See how it works? They don't tell you. You have to put pieces of the puzzle together by doing research. And so it's unclear as to whether she's jailbait, 16 years old, at BYU. As he's a 24-year-old. 8 years older. We don't know. We don't know. They won't tell us. But Calder, don't recognize that church name. From church history, anyway. Well, we could run the check, but. Okay. So, yeah, I intended to go over the Doctrine and Covenants manual, but because we're an hour and 30 minutes in, we're not going to do that. I'm just going to remind you that with him involved in controlling the information taught at BYU, as psychology has permeated all of the fields of science at BYU, thus destroying the science. My brother being a victim of that for sociology when he went to the University of Michigan for his PhD, which they rejected him, said, you didn't do it right. Because he was taught at BYU, where he was valedictorian, that psychology needs to be used in sociology. And thus, the University of Michigan, still being a legitimate source of education, using science only for sociology, rejected him. Your BYU credits don't count here. Mr. Valedictorian. And so he cried to his mommy, and mommy told him to pull the religion card. Michigan instantly caved. Get the hell out of here. And then the church would then exploit my brother to attack me in 2023 when I move into this apartment, to get me financially hurt and shut up on YouTube. He failed, and my brother got punished for his failure by losing $2,000 and being not so trusted on his rise to power. See, because if he had succeeded, they would have promoted him. They would have elevated him both in the job and in his church callings. He failed. Because of his PhD moving to Utah again, he was instantly made a high councilman in the ward down in Orem. Instantly made a high priest. You have succeeded in the world promoting the church. Well done. And yet, it was all based on a fraud. This is how the church operates. It's very scary. And so the Doctrine and Covenants manual, I was going to run another test for you, just like I did with AI, to see what else they are leaving out of vital importance for you for the Doctrine and Covenants year in their brand new manual, because they're already taking out all of the key scriptures about your Christ, Messiah ben David. That's how I was going to tie it all together. But we had a wonderful journey. We learned a lot. Our tender feelings are precious. On with the video. My hell.